And good evening and welcome. Let's just check. I think I just got an indication. Hello and welcome to the Way of Conscious Mindfulness. My name is Sifu Boggy. Sifu means guide, muse, somebody who points you along the way, who guides you on the path. Oh, there we are. And welcome to the Way of Conscious Mindfulness, a regular podcast show discussing spirituality and science, blending and balancing it with health and well-being and mind, body and spirit with a Taoist twist. What does the Tao mean? The Tao means the way, the path, the balance. Now, this isn't a normal show. Anything with me in it most definitely isn't normal. Each week we either have a subject or guest. Today we have a very cool, very interesting guest, and our goal, our aim, is to have an open discussion to help us all find new techniques, new ways, new ideas to balance our very own personal way, path, or Tao. So without further ado, I will bring on the guests themselves, the awesome Winston. Good evening, Winston Lyle. How are you doing?
Hi, how you doing? Can you see me?
Yes, just about.
Oh, yeah, my camera's acting up. I tried to clean it. I tried to focus it, but this is what we got today. So I'm sorry about that.
It will work. It will work. We'll make it.
Doing pretty well.
Good. Good. So we'll do it as you know, for over the last 300 and this is 302nd show. So over the 300 shows, there's one question I always ask at the very beginning, and then we just sort of go with the flow. So that question is as follows. So Winston, this is the Way of Winston Lyle. So this is your show. What is your way? What is your personal way, path, or balance?
My balance comes from my medications and from exercise and meditation, and most importantly from music. Writing it, listening to it. I listen to 432 hertz, 528 hertz, 396 hertz, all those different meditations and Om chanting. I have playlists on my YouTube channel, but they help me balance out whenever I get too emotional. And whenever I have a lot of energy, I sit down at my studio and I write music, and I produce it electronically using my computer and my keyboard. With Fruity Loops Studios, I learned that in 2011. It was when 2010, I guess, 2010, I first got my hands on a cracked copy of Fruity Loops, and I used it for a while, and then I bought it. Once I bought it, it started working a lot better, so I recommend you buy it. Let's see, I play piano, I play guitar and bass, but I don't have any of those. I have a drum set right there. I have a violin back there that just got restored, and well, it got restored a couple of years ago, but I just started practicing again. I'm a big Lindsey Sterling fan, so I want to learn how to play the violin again. But I just got this hooked up and learned how to use it. Cool. Which is a mixer board, and that helps me do stuff faster. But the music I write is scary, it's dark, and it's exciting. And my hope is that it gets underneath the soul, and it just wakes people up, shows them that life isn't all happy, blues isn't all happy pop songs. It's a totally different take on the music industry. I'm not doing too well yet, but I'm just getting started.
Cool. Everything starts at the beginning. Everything starts, one step at a time, and especially if you're, the whole thing of coming in with something popular is that you've got lots of people doing all the same stuff. When you're coming in doing something totally new and radical, it makes you unique, but it also makes it in some ways more difficult to break through. So, you just got to, but you got to do what resonates for you. Definitely, you've got to do what works for you. That's the whole point. So like you mentioned, you mentioned like medication and whatnot. So from what got you onto this journey? Well, what was your childhood? Where did you begin? What brought you to the
Well,
journey?
the first lessons in breathing that I got was from my tuba instructor, Jay Bueller. He passed away a few years ago, rest his soul. He was a very big influence on me, and he taught me to breathe deep with the diaphragm, pushing your stomach out, holding it in, and then pushing your stomach back in and letting it out. And that was really helpful for tuba. And I was running back then. I can't run now. I need to get in shape, but I was running and doing the breath work. And that was the introduction to meditation. And then none of my therapists or any of the people in my real life really got me into meditation. I found that through YouTube and through some channels like Love Modus, Meditative Mind. Those are two that really stick out to me, but there's so many. I find new meditations every day, and they're like 3 hours long. And sometimes I listen for half an hour. Sometimes I listen for the whole 3 hours. It just depends on how out of balance I am. And I like to go out, especially in the cold, when it's like 40 degrees out, not when it's like -20, but when it's like 40, 35, 40 degrees, I'll go out and take my shoes off and I'll connect my feet to the ground and absorb Mother Earth's ions from her, and breathing and listening to music. And I have my bow staff and I twirl that around a little bit, and it makes me feel powerful. And sometimes I'll just balance it on my elbows and do this and just stand on one foot with my knee up in the air and just try to stand there for as long as I possibly can and stay balanced. That helps, especially if I'm barefoot. I take my shoes off, connect to the Mother Earth, and that can bring me back. In the past, I've dealt with suicide attempts, 7 of them to be exact. I won't get into the details of all of them, but I'm up to 7 suicide attempts. The last one was in 2018, and I haven't been back to the hospital since. I've been doing pretty well. When I get real angry or sad, or I cry when I get real happy too. I'll start laughing and then I'll start crying. And sometimes just to stop crying, I need to take a deep breath in and center myself. Change my environment sometimes whenever I'm sitting here in my studio and I'm not getting anywhere. I'll just put on some piano music or some classical music and go for a walk around. It's a pretty hilly area I live in, so it's always uphill. It feels like I'm always walking uphill. It's a good workout. But where was I? I started meditation whenever the first time I heard a monk chant Om, it just washed over me. And I said, that's exactly the stuff I need in my life. So I learned it. I went, Om. And I practice that sometimes, but I'm not that good at it. But
It doesn't matter.
yeah, it helps. And whenever I'm listening to the monks chant and I chant along, I try to fill in some notes that they miss, because there's always a note you can add to a chord, even if it's a 5-note chord. You can always add a 6th or 7th note into there somewhere. Because if you got an F and then a C and then an A, that's a major chord. E minor chord with an A flat. You can add the 7th, which is E, the minor 7th, which is E flat, or the 6th, which is D, and that's all different chords, but they chords act differently. They have stable roots. They have first inversion, which is less stable, and second inversion, which is even less stable. So if you use you take a C major chord, which is C, E, G, but you start with E, G, C, that's second inversion C major. It's very unstable. It wants to resolve to G, which you could go D, G, B, which is a first inversion, or you could go G, G with an octave and a third, which is B, and the 5th, which is D. So I learned all this in college. I went to college for music. I never finished, but I learned a lot.
Awesome.
So a lot of times when I have an emotion or an event in my life that I'm struggling with, I get creative and I express myself to the best of my ability.
And that's what it's all about.
I get better every day.
That's what it's all about. So, is that understanding that things take time and they build up slowly, and practice. Everybody gets caught up in the destination or the goal rather than the practice or the journey. Is that the journey is the most important thing. And it's the learning on the way. You're always gaining more information. You're always growing. There's always more to learn. There's always more to know. That's the point. A couple of things I wanted to sort of highlight and pick up on is so your did you say trumpet player or trombone player?
Well, I played trombone in jazz band, but that definitely wasn't my main instrument. My main instrument was tuba and piano. I took lessons in college for those two instruments.
The teacher that taught you the breathing technique, that was a trombone player?
He was a euphonium tuba player.
Right, okay. Tuba, sorry.
Yeah.
But yeah, that breathing technique is called belly breathing. In the East. So breathing in, let the belly expand, and as you breathe out, you pull the belly in. It fully opens up the diaphragm. It opens up the air canal, so it allows the air to fully flow in. So that's where that technique comes from, and it's a very powerful technique. There are many different breathing techniques. People just breathe, but is that actually when you learn how to breathe? You learn different ways to breathe. It affects, because breath affects the body, it affects the mind, and it affects the spirit. So where you breathe, and what do you mean by where you breathe? Well, if you're breathing in your throat, then you can build up tension and think. And in the East, they actually say, breathe from your belly and you are like a child, like a baby. When you breathe from your throat, you are like a dying man, because one of the last breaths people take is in their throat. There's very raspy, there's a certain sound that's made when you're close to death that comes to the death vessel. And so the East, the Taoists very much believe that drawing the breath down into the belly extended your life and gave you as much energy and life as possible. And so the where you breathed was important, and how you breathed. If you breathe sharp, fast and shallow. Your actions are fast and shallow. Your thoughts are fast and shallow. But if you breathe slowly and smoothly, then your actions, your emotions, they all become that same, the same way.
Yeah, I
So
think I've been thinking about putting together a YouTube playlist about breathing alone. I'll have to search and watch and find the best stuff, but it's all stuff that I've learned along the way. Through guided meditations, they teach you how to breathe. Almost every single one of them tells you to start breathing. And Emily Harrison, she does breathing exercises. I'm sure you know her.
The mighty Emily Harrison. Yep, I was one of her qigong instructors. Her qigong sifis. When she did the Akashic Academy, used to be a show. There used to be different shows on Facebook.
Mm-hmm. I remember.
I was one of the presenters on there. I did my own stuff of qigong, which is breath work and exercise, and as well as the Dragon Dog Shaman. And Sifu E, she also does breath work. Most people do of some sort. They don't always realise they are, but it's a very important thing. It's a very powerful thing. And then you mentioned something else about, well, you mentioned about having your feet on the ground. That's earthing. Mm-hmm. So there's actually a whole science behind that. Mm-hmm. Earthing and the benefits of earthing, or earthing, like even things like your bed. You can actually create there's a like a copper mesh that can go onto your mattress, and there's a wire that will come out that mesh, and you can put that into the earth, and it actually earths your bed, so it makes it more grounded. It's one of the reasons why when people who enjoy camping always seem to tend to feel more energized or better energized when they when they spend a lot of time outside or even sleep outside on the ground. With the cold weather, there is a thing called the fire method, or Wim Hof. If you look up Wim Hof, he's known as the Iceman, and there's a few friends I have who do the Wim Hof method. I actually do pre-Wim Hof, because Wim Hof always says he made it himself, and I totally believe him. But everything you think of it comes from the universe. Well, Emily Harrison, the Akashic Record. We are more connected to the Akashic Records than people realise. All information of the universe is easily available to us. And I honestly not just believe, I feel, I know that when people come up with an idea, that idea is plucked from the Akashic Records. It's plucked.
Well, yeah, that's very interesting, because I took a long break from writing music. I was going strong through 2016, 2017, and 2018. And I got about halfway done with the album I'm about to release. And I just had a breakdown. I just totally lost it. And I didn't touch any of my music equipment for like 2 years, until about August of this year. And I just prayed to God. I prayed to the all, and I said, give me inspiration to keep working on music. And then one of my favorite channels on YouTube, Love Motives, LOVMOTIVES, Love Motives Meditation. He did a Enter the Akashic Records binaural beat, and it had tantric drums, and it just I listened to that, and it just opened up. All this inspiration came into me, and I just knew exactly what my story was again, and I started writing it. Now there's real life, and then there's my fantasy world that I create, and they cross over, but I'll leave it a mystery to what's true and what's not true.
Yeah, well, that goes into a lot of stuff. There's the ancient ones very much talk about dreams and reality, and even the spiritual world. You know, within Dragon Dog Shaman, they very much talk about that there is a thin veil um, between each reality, and
Yeah.
that this reality and the past, the present, the future, this reality and alternative realities, and even our dreams and the spirit world, they're all you know, available. They're all interconnected, um, and you know, originally, obviously, science didn't believe in that, and we wrote, no, everything's linear. But quantum physics is, you know, especially in the last, especially in the last 20 years,
Hmm.
quantum physics has changed
I've
the.
been trying to keep up with that, but there's a new article every week.
Well, I mean, there's an interesting thing that NASA released in December last year, that they released that that they have acknowledged, or they have found 14 other dimensions with life, or 14 other realities that also exist that contain life, and they left it at that. And because of COVID, obviously, people have not really delved into that. But it's like, what do you mean? But the multiverse theory is that every possibility, it exists out there, that they believe that you know, in there are multiverses of all realities. Now that means there's multiverses of you eating a ham sandwich yesterday and you not eating one yesterday, but there's also realities of the dinosaur, the meteor that wiped out the dinosaurs didn't happen, or the meteor that wiped out the dinosaurs did happen, but it blew up the earth. You know, there are, you know, and so that theory, the multiverse theory, is that there are, you know, unlimited amounts of realities out there of
Yeah.
all different versions
I've
of each.
seen I've seen plenty of videos on channeling and trying to jump timelines. Uh, I think Emily talked about it. One of my favorite YouTubers, Aaron Dalty. Have you
Yeah.
ever heard of him? Yeah, he talks about it. And even Ralph Smart talks about it. Ralph Smart and Aaron Doughty, I wake up to them every morning and, well, every afternoon. I get up around noon sometimes. But
Well, Smart. I didn't have him on this show, but I have talked to him before, and he was also. I don't know if you've heard of Mystic Spider-Man, Skull Babylon, Brendan
no,
Cullen.
I have to look him up.
Yeah, he was. He's did he because he was, or Emily, I'm trying to remember if Emily. I think he was on a show that Emily came on a show with me, because Emily was actually a co-host for a while for this show. She did a
Mhm.
couple of co-hosts, and yeah, so yeah, he has had Ralph Smart on his show, Brendan Cullington, Mystic Spider-Man, and there's the Dragon Dog Shaman were very much about that you know, even past, present, and future are realities or dimensions. You know, they're different, because the whole thing of dimensions gets very confusing, because some people see dimension as one thing and see something else, or not as dimension, or vice versa. But the Eastern philosophy on dimensions is that past, present, and future are all different dimensions, that you then have everything you've ever done, all alternative realities are different dimensions, but then you also have totally alternative universes that are also different dimensions. So
Mhm.
the whole thing of dimensions, it's probably easier to sort of see it as TV channels or radio channels that all exist. And if you are the radio, and where we are right now, or we are the radios, we're tuned into this frequency. But if you change your frequency, you suddenly see a different radio station, or you hear a different radio station. So the whole idea is that that we're all tuned into this this frequency, but you can actually change the frequency. You can actually alter it.
Speaking of frequencies, I think one of the things that I pay attention to the most is ear ringing, because you can get one that sounds like, oh, hold on, about that pitch, and if you get that, then that's your angels working on you. And then up a bit is, I can't whistle without blowing on the mic.
Oh.
I should have practiced. If you get that, that's a warning. It's almost like a your angel's telling you to watch out. And then there's even higher ones that can't be whistled. And that's when someone's talking about you, or your angel guides are talking about you. You know what that one is, right?
Yes, well, yeah. Obviously, medically, that's known as tinnitus or tinnitus. But yeah, the East, they would see them as different frequencies coming in, and or could be warnings, and but also like downloads, receiving information. The interesting thing, like you were saying about the Om or mantras, the Sanskrit word for mantra for chanting. In Japanese, it's kotodama, and even with the chanting, so the chanting on a low level, it's all about clearing the mind and meditation. But then on the higher levels, they've actually used chanting, like spellcasting, really. Like they use chanting to actually change your reality, to alter things. There's definitely been times in the past where I've chanted, and then for a split second, I'm suddenly see myself elsewhere, and sort of like suddenly, what's going on? And I stop chanting, or my chanting changes, and then suddenly it flips back. But there's definitely, frequency and changing your frequency, whether it's through sound or just through your body, because your heart itself is bioelectric. Well, it generates a bioelectric magnetic field. The brain is electric, but from the earth we get magnetism. So the earth has a magnetic field, but in space and in our brains there's an electric field. And it's interesting that you go back far enough that in the 1800s, they actually, scientists were talking about the electrical universe and the sun actually being electric, and then all that information is suddenly stopped. And like we're at schools, we're sort of told that, the sun is a nuclear furnace, and it's like, well, that's not true. That is not true, because you have physicists, Nissan Herriman, who said that the sun doesn't emit enough radiation for it to be a nuclear furnace. There's far more electrical current coming off the sun than there is radiation. So it's very interesting is that, in school, and our perception of reality is a lot different to what actually reality is. We've sort of misunderstood or been taught a different narrative, a different set of information. Almost like, they're trying to keep us from knowing the truth. But who knows? Who knows?
Well, I think what we learn in school is all when you reach a certain point in your awakening, when you realize everything that you've learned has to be relearned. And sometimes I wake up and I realize I don't know anything, and I just spend all day trying to learn something. And then I fall asleep exhausted because I just learned so much. I love those days.
we're listening, just observing and listening to the world. You learn. That's the point. We spend so much time watching and watching TV or not actually just listening to the world and going outside and just observing the world. That's where you learn so much, because the how the Taoists would say is that everything is your sifu. Everything is talking to you all the time. There is so much, trying to give so much. Nature is so much trying to give you information and give you knowledge, but most people don't listen. And most people have forgotten how to listen and how to observe. So it's that whole idea, with tones, there's so much stuff to, you'll pick up on information. There's so much you can learn, and it's interesting, like you say, when you get tired and just by just try and observe the world, and just spend time outside, and you just gain so much knowledge just by allowing yourself. And that was the whole thing, like with Emily Harrison. The knowledge of the universe, the Akashic records, is there for everybody to tune into, but it's not. It's learning it in a different way. It's learning in a different way. It's listening. It's not necessarily listening with your ears and seeing with your eyes, but it's learning how to listen with the body, listen with the heart.
Well, when you listen to the heart and you listen to your consciousness, it answers your questions.
Yeah.
And it'll come in. For me, it comes in as a thought, but I know it's not from me. It's like you're typing on a computer console, and then all of a sudden another line comes up in italics, and it's an answer to your question, or it's a suggestion, or it's just advice from your guides, I guess. But one thing that was really hard for me was back in 2013, I was diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder, bipolar type. And that was because I was hearing voices, I was seeing things, and I'm on medication for it, but it never fully went away. And I don't know for sure that I want it to, because there's angels and there's demons talking to me. And I have to listen to the angels and ignore and tell the demons to go screw themselves. But you never know whenever a voice will come disguised in an angel that's really a demon. And it's tough. Some days all they do is put you down. And another thing that happens is I'll read something someone typed and I'll misinterpret it, or I'll hear it wrong, or I'll a lot of times I'll think they're talking about me when they're not even talking about me. And that's tough, because there's a zone in psychosis where you think everything's about you, and you think that the whole world's conspiring against you, and then you wake up the next day and you realize the whole world doesn't even know who you are.
Well, yeah, there's an interesting thing with that, is that in the Fortune 500 businesses, that people with your condition would also be trained up in a certain way, in a positive way, and used to connect to stuff, that because the things you hear, in medical science, they'll say, oh, or these voices you're making up, or they're not correct. But actually, there's many frequencies that we can hear that we can't always recognize or understand. There's lots of things we see that we can't always recognize and understand. Is that science knows that we physically see less than 1% of reality that exists, not because it's far away, but literally our eyes don't pick it up. That there is what we only see, what less than 1% of the visible spectrum. Is that the colours and the things that we see? We only see 1% of them. There is so much out there that we don't see with our normal eyes, but we do pick up. So our eyes are rods and cones, So the focused bit at the centre is the cone of the eye, and then the rods see all that information on the outside. And so 90% of your eye is rods. But the rods actually pick up so much information, and you see things in the corner of your eye, to see things you flick that we've been told to ignore, but they're actually real. They actually exist.
Shadows and stuff like that. I know.
And there's the thing with is the old saying is that light and dark, everything exists because it's meant to exist. That's the whole point. And darkness exists because it allows you the opportunity to learn and grow from it. In Eastern philosophy, in Taoism, they talk about if you hear voices or you'd hear information, bring it to your heart. So if you draw that information to your heart and just listen to your heart, if those voices, if they're dark, then fear will creep in. You'll be afraid, or you'll feel agitated or not sure, and then okay, don't listen to that voice. But if you hear positivity or love, or you feel yourself expanding and growing, then that is a voice of love. That is a voice of positivity. So I was always taught is all information when it comes through, I listen to my heart. I observe, what should I do next? And even like, people use tarot cards and whatnot. And it's like I was, again, the shaman, the dragon dog shaman would use their heart as a tarot card. Is that, you have an information, you want to ask something, ask your heart, ask, what's the outcome of me doing this? And then just listen, focus inward and listen to the heart. If you feel more positive and happy and feel expansive, then it's saying that's a good thing to do. If you're feeling scared or nervous or agitated, then it's saying don't do that thing. So again, these little bits of information have been, dismissed, or we're told not to listen to, and it's like I said, when I used to be a close protection officer or bodyguard, and my teachers worked a lot with the Fortune 500, the million pound companies, the billion pound companies, and those companies, I know for a fact, used, because I was there. I know they use psychics. I know they use empaths. I know they use remote viewers. I know they use telepaths. I know they used people in the autistic spectrum. They used people that were classed as ADHD. They were used people who were classed with many different ailments and injuries.
Well, all those ailments you just mentioned were created by modern science on purpose.
Well, yeah,
not necessarily on purpose,
but they were labeled as, like I said, created. They exist. They do exist, but they're not ailments. They're skills. It's one thing I will always emphasize is that the people that I worked for and the people that they worked for, these different businesses, they didn't see dyslexia as an ailment. They don't see autism as an ailment. They don't see schizophrenia or split personality disorder as an ailment. It's a skill. It's a skill they use, but the issue is that it's been portrayed in general society that these are ailments, these are conditions, but they're not within the higher echelons, within these big businesses. They use these because it's like if you see things in minute detail and you pick up the smallest of things, that's a skill. If you see, if you can hear things that other people can't hear, that's a skill. If you're seeing things that other people can't hear, that's a skill. Within the million pound, billion pound businesses, they use spells. They use so-called magic, and they use it all the time. They manifest stuff. They curse. They create curses and create spells all the time. And people don't know that goes on, but it does.
I messed around with a little bit of spell casting myself in the past, just recently, actually.
Well, when you look into quantum physics says the observer affects the experiment, and what they're talking to is that and this is why within both science and medical science you have you have blind, double blind, and even triple blind case studies, because the blind case means that the person who's in the experiment, the person that runs the experiment, even sometimes the person who's running the experiment doesn't know what's going on, doesn't actually know what the experiment's about, because when they do, they can actually affect the experiment. They can actually alter the reality of the experiment. And this goes back to quantum physics, is that the scientists were predicting what the atoms were going to do, and they were and what was happening is that three different scientists were saying three different things, and all three things were happening, and they were going, yeah, but that can't be right. How can that be? We can't all be right. So they would all do each other's experiment. They and the other two were wrong, and that person who's doing the experiment, what he believed was going to happen happened. And again, this is impossible. What's going on? And when they actually didn't observe the experiment, when the experiment happened and they just looked at the results afterwards, it was a totally different. It was more random, or totally different thing happened. So they realised that the observer, us, we literally affect things. Now, this is taken even further within medicine, is that epigenetics has shown exactly the same. If you're happy and positive, your body thrives and your body goes into healing mode. If you're scared, angry, frustrated, feeling alone, your body goes into it doesn't thrive. It starts to deteriorate. It goes into negative mode. So your emotions literally affect your physical health. And there's even one step further to that, is that the placebo and nocebo effect. The placebo, most people know what placebo is where you have a fake tablet or sugar tablet, and the person thinks they're taking the real thing. And because they think they're taking the real thing, it gives them a positive result. People who take placebos, and they have to do placebos in a majority of testing, but in America, you guys in America, you do placebos all the time to test the product, even when it's already passed. And 80 to 90% of the people who take the placebo, they get better, either a little bit or totally. Even to the point where there is actually placebo chemo machines. So the chemotherapy machines, they have machines that don't actually emit any radiation at all. It's totally fake. It just makes the sounds, and people still get burnt skin and they still lose their hair, just like the normal chemo machine. And they exist. They exist because it's part of the medical way, the way things are set up.
Well, that makes me think of a interesting topic about sound versus light. And I've often wondered myself, would I rather be deaf or would I rather be blind? And I think I'd rather be blind because sound has more power and you can hear,
Well,
you can,
well, they're both
you can,
frequency.
yeah,
They're both-
you can learn to create vision from sound alone.
yeah.
And you can hear pictures, but it's not as easy because there's a lot of noise in pictures.
Yeah.
But good sounds have an incredible visual effect over me. It lights up my third eye like crazy.
Hmm.
And I try to recreate those sounds.
Light and sound is frequency. They're both a frequency. Is that the whole point is that light, light is a slower density to sound. Sorry, light is a higher density to sound. So when it goes from the light spectrum, it goes lower. It turns into sound. It turns into something that the ears can actually pick up. But yeah, they know, and technically every atom is frequency. Everything is vibration. Is everything. The whole point. The reason why a wall is solid to you is because your body is at a certain frequency, and the wall is at a certain frequency. And when one touches the other, they appear solid. But if you change the frequency of yourself or change the frequency of the wall, you could actually go through it.
I
And
haven't
there's
tried
actually
that yet.
evidence of this. It's not just sci-fi. There is evidence of this. They know that this is possible. I just want to quickly go back to the placebo. You've got the nocebo effect, which is if what you believe is true. So if you believe that the medicine isn't going to work, or if you believe that this, that you're going to fail, or this is not going to happen, you literally make it happen. That people who were given 100%, there were loads of case studies of people who were definitely meant to, um, that medicine would have healed them, that the operation was meant to be a success, but they totally believed that it wasn't going to be. They totally believed wasn't going to happen, and their bodies shut down. Their bodies literally made that thing happen. So in epigenetics, you can literally you can heal your body and you can kill your body. You can totally flip things around. So this whole thing of sounds, or what you're seeing and hearing, is that you personally actually control what you're seeing and hearing, and the pharmaceutical companies are very nervous about placebos and nocebos because they can't patent them, they can't make money off of them. Is that we have the ability to actually fix ourselves and heal ourselves. And the whole point of Qigong and the Eastern philosophy is that they encourage that. They encourage you to actually fix yourself. And as a barefoot doctor, we actually say is that, no, I don't fix you, you fix you. I just show you what to do. I'm showing you, I'm pointing you in that way. And things like earthing are actually helping you recover back to a certain frequency, is helping the body go back to that certain frequency. So the ancient knowledge is all about self-discovery and self-learning. And even the mantras you were talking about, they do the same thing. Doing mantras, doing chanting, actually helps your body return to a certain frequency and go in a certain direction. And the Om, there are many different Oms. There's actually the Buddhist Om, which has a tone in it. So the Buddhist tone is do, or it's a Buddhist tune. It's do 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 do. So the Om would be Om. So you actually place, but you can also do it down because Chinese words and Japanese and Chinese are tonal. So if the tone goes up, it means one thing. If the tone goes down, it means something else. If it goes down, up, down, it means something. If it's going up, down, up, it means something. So they will do the chants in different tones as well. So you get things like oh. And when you do that, so even adding or raising or lowering the frequency changes the vibration that you're creating when you chant. So these are interesting to play with and interesting to figure out as well. And bow staff is really, really cool. I love bow staff.
Yeah, it's fun. I remember the first couple years I had that thing. I whacked myself so much in the head with it, in the shins, in the ankles, in the knees. I broke 2 phones with that thing because I had my phone in my pocket, and I would come out and with that one. Oh, it's gone. Maybe I threw it away. It's about time. Oh no, this one. See, I broke it right there.
Yeah.
Right on the camera. But let me think. Yeah, I was gonna say there for a while I shut it all off. I got hospitalized and they put me on a Invega shot. I get it in the arm or in the hip.
Right.
And they were putting me on that every 3 weeks at 156 milligrams. And it just totally numbed all my emotions.
Sure.
And I finally stood up to him. I said, this is too much. I need to feel again. So I got my dosage lowered. I went to every 4 weeks. And I just exploded with all this emotion. My grandfather died in July. That hit me like a ton of bricks. I still have to write him a memorial piece. But I've been crying. I've been laughing. I've been angry. I've been sad. I've been full of energy, and I've been exhausted all at once.
Mm.
And it feels good to have that emotional wave come back. And it's a fine line between crazy and genius. And I walk it pretty precariously. So I try not to go too crazy. Sometimes I don't. I don't know.
Well, my one of my old friends would say that normal is the average of weird, and most people, and I think crazy is the same. That normal is the average of crazy. Is that there's a lot of people that are crazy out there, far more than we think, and we say something is normal, and it's only what the average is. It's only what we can consider is normal. And you look back at things we did 100 years ago, 200 years ago. If we were to do them now, you would definitely be considered crazy. You definitely would be considered, a danger to society. But hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago, that was the normal thing. So, it's all about perception. Everything is what we perceive it, to be. And the problem is, I think we're too eager to just shut things down and to ignore things rather than actually explore things and allow ourselves to go, to experience that. Because when you experience it, you actually witness it, you allow yourself to accept it, you move on. A lot of people will say, why does this keep happening to me? And it's like, because you haven't let it go, because you haven't allowed yourself to experience it fully. But as any good Taoist should say, hey, what do I know?
In one of my songs that I just recently, I've been working on 2 albums at once. That's how busy I've been. But one of my songs in my album that I'm going to release next, it's called Moods, and it has a song called Dream World in it. And one of the lines, I got these vocal packs off of Splice, but she says, once you surrender to the fact that you don't know anything at all, you just be knowing you know nothing at all.
Indeed.
And she also says, my mind is not my brain. My brain is imbalanced, but my mind can be incredibly sharp.
There's lots of, with the mind, there's been people that have had illnesses that actually have, like the actual brain itself has eradicated the brain, so there's only a super thin layer left, and yet they're still fully conscious and fully awake, which totally surprised the medical profession, because they believed that the brain, if you didn't have a full brain, you couldn't function. But these people have, I can't remember the actual name of the disease, but there's a disease which eats away the interior of the brain, and there's only literally like a thin, an ultra thin layer left of the brain, and yet the people are still there. They're still there, and they're fully functioning. And then they've done MRI scans to actually find that consciousness, like when they try to see whereabouts consciousness was, where the information was coming from, it actually appeared to come from the outside of the body, not the inside.
In your aura, in your etheric field.
Yeah. So in actual fact, well, according to some of the ancients, is that your aura is your consciousness, is your, if you want to use the word soul, is your soul. Is that the aura is the soul. So the information goes from out in. It comes, and the aura is almost the energy you that is remote controlling this body. That, like some people often say, it feels like I'm being remote controlled. It feels, I don't feel part of my body. It's like, well, because you're actually your aura, and the aura is on the outside, and the aura controls this body. You control your body from outside, not in. Because when they did the MRI scans trying to see where consciousness was, it wasn't inside. It wasn't inside the body.
Well, yeah, you can do a little thought exercise and really focus on yourself, and you can say, am I my hands? No, my hands are my hands. I'm something else. Am I my feet? No, I'm not my feet. My feet are separate from me. And am I my brain? No, I'm not my brain. And am I my whole body? I'm not even that, You know that everything about your body is just an avatar of what you are. And the soul and the mind and the body are 3 separate things. They're the Holy Trinity. And I have the Holy Trinity. This is my soul amulet. Yeah. It's made out of obsidian. It's a dragon. And then this is my body. It's a quartz crystal on a cross. And then this is my mind. It's the Star of David. Now, I know my camera is out of focus, but I'm getting more here soon. But these 3 have been with me for like 5 years.
Nice. Yeah, obsidian is a good stone. I have it's over there actually. I have a dragon too. I have a dragon obsidian, and I also have a dragon barquois. The barquois is have you ever seen the little Chinese mirrors? The 6-sided, so that's hexagon. Yeah, hexagon mirrors. No, it's 8-sided. Octagon mirror. Yeah, so it's got a little 8. It's got little markings, 8 markings, and then it's got a mirror in the center. But I've got one made of the obsidian, so it's jet black. So yeah, it's very, very cool. Very cool indeed. Okay, so we'll start to wrap up. Is there anything you want to say before we sort of shut down the show?
Just check out my YouTube channel, Latent Avail, LatenTAval. Well, there's a space in between them, but I got lots of videos on there. It's a journey if you listen to everything. I can't listen to it all at once. I get about halfway through my videos and I have to quit. But I have 8 original albums that I've been working on. Some of my earlier albums I never finished or really produced videos for. I didn't think they were good enough, but I'm starting to get focused enough where I can go back to my old work and fix it, which is a skill I didn't have before. I'd get frustrated and I'd say, this is unfixable. I'm done with this. But finishing Faster Than Light Volume 1 was a very big accomplishment for me. I've been working on it for 4 years. So check that out. It comes out December 30th on all the stores. But thank you. Thanks for having me on.
More than welcome. It's been a great pleasure. We've enjoyed the show. So yeah, you take care, and I would like to have you on again at some point, or maybe next year sometime.
Anytime.
And see where you are then. So
maybe I'll be doing better by then. I'm getting there. Namaste.
You stay where you are, but everybody else. So thank you so much for joining. Hope you've enjoyed the show. And share. You can always share this out. Obviously, it's on YouTube. So, but share it out to your friends or share it to anybody who you think this show will resonate with. If you're ever interested in learning Qigong, Tai Chi, Reiki, then you can find me on www.shundaoschool.com, and you'll find me there. You'll also find me as Sifu Boggy here, obviously, on YouTube. Take it that's where you found it, or you're just watching this randomly. You can also find me on Instagram under sifu.boggy, and you can find me on Facebook under Sifu Boggy. So that's it for now. So thank you, dear sir. Thank you, Winston. Everybody else, you take care. Until next time, remember, open your mind to the way, the conscious way, the way of conscious mindfulness.
Stay conscious.
Indeed. What he said.
Namaste.